Reverend Mary Hawk.
Good evening, and thank you for joining us on Witch Rising. I am Reverend Mary Hawk, and today I have with me my special guest, Sir Brian John Ellicott. And Brian is uses the pronouns he and they. He started Queer Justice Tarot because he wasn't finding a lot of space for members of the LGBT community to be fully authentic selves when receiving tarot readings and studying tarot. Brian self identifies as a bisexual man of transgender experience. He has 10 plus years experience studying Wicca and divination, specifically tarot. He is currently working on his first degree and is a member of the Order of Paladins. He also holds a Bachelor of Science degree in Political Science and Public Administration from the City University of New York College of Staten Island. He was previously employed at Princess Jenny Place as a program coordinator. He assisted in housing members of the TGNB community, and he received an Impact Award in 2017 by Gay City News. He's also been honored for his courageous work against discrimination against transgender and non-binary New Yorkers. And so Brian lives in Inwood, New York with his fiance and their cat Elvis. Brian, welcome and thank you so much for joining me.
Thanks, Mary.
And tonight we are going to be talking about LGBTQ plus issues. And I do want to stress that the opinions expressed here are those of myself and Brian. They do not reflect the opinions of Pagan World TV or the Pagan World Project Limited. And our chat options are open, and we welcome commentary, respectful commentary, and questions in chat. So, let's talk a little bit about where we are with LGBTQ plus rights, because frankly, what's happening now is disturbing. For the last 20 or so years, we've actually been seeing steady progress and gains. And then suddenly, over the past few years, there has been a huge backlash, and all kinds of legislation is being passed, or at least being considered, that would restrict LGBTQ rights. And hello to Arlene. Thank you for joining us. So, do you want to speak to that, Brian?
Yeah, and I'll start by saying that in 2023, anti-trans legislation has continued to rise and be introduced across the country. Currently, there are 492 bills across 47 states. 417 of those are active. 32 of those bills have passed, and of them had failed. And all of these bills cover a wide range of issues, from receiving access to basic health care, education, legal recognition, and actually just wanting to sort of eradicate the existence of trans people, which is horrible and sucks.
It really, really does. There is just no other way to describe it.
So I have been living out and proud since 2008. I came out as bisexual. In 2011, I came out as trans while I was interning here in New York City at the city council. Um, and I would say over the past couple years, for a while, things were getting better. And then Obviously, uh, the Making America Great Again and all of those sort of people sort of change the environment for us.
And that is such a sad commentary because Make America Great Again really means make America great for people who look like us and act like us. It doesn't mean make America great for everyone.
Right. And also, recently, as especially where you live, Mary, they're attacking they're attacking even like drag, which drag is a art expression for some. It is a way to provide for people's families, for others, and it's also a way of expressing, your gender expression.
Right.
Um, And here in New York City, we have a youth. His name is Desmond, and he goes under the drag name Desmond is Amazing. Um, I met Desmond when he was very young. I want to say like 7 or 8. He's probably about, or they're probably about, 16 or 17 now.
Mhm.
The number of times that their family has had child protective services called on them is ridiculous. All of it unfounded, thankfully. Um,
Yes.
which because they go to drag shows or they perform in drag during daylight hours. Um, I have a friend who does Drag Queen Story Hour here in New York City. Um, and at this point, she needs a police escort to do her job, to read, Rainbow Fish to 5-year-olds.
And that's ridiculous.
Drag Queen Story Hour. I don't know if you've ever had the pleasure of going, Mary. It's probably the best story hour besides listening to the common librarian. It's a little more lively than your common librarian.
I'm sure it is. To the best of my knowledge, no one has hosted one in my area, or I would have done my best to take the grandkids. But I know a lot of drag performers really get into it, create a costume appropriate for the book, and really perform the story and not just read the book.
Hmm. And even I
And
want to say the way the Nashville bill is written, Mary, I know you like to keep your hair bright and lively. I would also be on your best outlooking behavior and making sure, because you could be accused yourself even for having brightly colored hair these days. So it really goes to show that actually what they want to do is assimilate people and not protect youth, as they're saying.
well, in Tennessee, and the bill has already been challenged in court by a theater that hosts drag performers, pointing out that the state already has laws about performances containing nudity or explicit sexual material, and how those have to be regulated to be sure that minors cannot accidentally be admitted to such performances. So there is no state interest in promoting the current drag bill, and it does not, uh, it is so loosely written, it's would be hard to be enforced. Uh, yes, I suppose my brightly colored hair might be interpreted that way. The ACLU has also promised to defend anybody who is arrested and charged under it. So I suppose if I provoke a disturbance with green or blue hair, my preferred colors, I'll give them a call.
As you should. Um, I would say that right now my biggest worry is that some of our youth who are, learning about themselves and expressing themselves, as we know that TGNC youth are 4 times more likely to commit suicide than even their
Yeah.
um, gay, lesbian, and bisexual um, comrades. But it is very sad that their way of protecting children actually could do more harm than good.
It
I
really
do want
is.
to plug the Trevor Project, which has a series of um, opportunities for our youth to talk to a volunteer if they are in crisis. And I believe Mary can put the link across.
All right. Let me get the Trevor Project here.
TheTrevorProject.org.
All right. Here we the Trevor Project. Let me share that.
And the Trevor Project is available 24/7, 365 days a year. You can, there are phone numbers and chat rooms, and they're also always looking for volunteers. So if you need to, if you're looking for somewhere to volunteer, that's an option as well. So if you go to the top, Mary, where it says get help, it shows you reach a counselor, chat with us, the phone number, and the texting number.
Right. I am.
Reach a counselor.
Yes, reach a counselor right here at the top.
Yep.
And the URL I'm going to put is the trevorproject.org.
Mm-hmm.
And
So that is a resource for our youth ages 13 to 24. And it's a great resource, I believe, for all LGBTQ plus youth.
all right.
Um, and a lot of these bills are directed at our youth. Um, but there are also bills directed at our elders, um, which I will plug Sage, which, for those that don't know, I actually work at Sage. I work with their veterans program in New York State. And I work with veterans around their discharge status upgrades around Don't Ask, Don't Tell, which was gotten rid of in 2016. No,
I think so. Just a
12.
moment, and I will
2012.
share Sage here.
Yep. So in New York, we have Restoration of Honor that passed in 2019 that allows for, in New York State, us to upgrade our veterans' discharge statuses to reflect a more positive outcome if they were discharged under things like sexual orientation, gender identity, post traumatic stress disorder, military sexual assault, and traumatic brain injuries. So, SAGE works with our elder population, depending on how you identify. Um, if you're in a special category like trans veteran or HIV positive, you can become a member of SAGE at 50. Um, Other programs, you have to be like 65. And here in New York, they do all kinds of programming, meals, social activities, help with benefits. And they have SAGEs all across the United States. There's a program in South Florida, upstate New York, and some other places. So there are resources out there, I believe, for all people who are LGBTQ plus identified. but primarily a lot of resources on either end of the spectrum, either being youth or elders.
All right. And thank you for sharing these with us.
Of course.
We certainly appreciate that. And if anyone has a question for Brian or a comment, please feel free to post that in chat. And I will
May I
mention
plug
some,
the Order of the Rainbow tent as well?
you certainly can.
Thank you. I co-head the Order of the Rainbow tent in the Corellian tradition, where the first Friday of every month we hold a Zoom call and hold space and community for each other and just hang out and talk. I will. There's a Discord group, and if you are a member of the Corellian Nativist tradition, I usually post in the hub on Facebook as well as the outer court, since I'm still working on my first degree.
And if somebody wanted to contact you about this, how would they do so?
They can email me at ellicottbrian@gmail.com.
If you will, okay. Is it all right if I post that?
Yeah.
All right.
We actually just had our meeting for April. And then I also write an article for the Corellian Times every month, usually on a topic around LGBT rights. This last month, February, I wrote a large article about asexuality and aromantic people. So I try to cover a different topic every month.
And it is wonderful that you are doing that.
Thank
you. And if you have anyone in your life who falls under the LGBTQ plus frame, I really encourage you to check out these resources so you can understand them better. Let's see here. Arlene says, thank you for all you do, Brian, and she's heading out. Thank you for joining us, Arlene. Have a great evening. Because it is important to understand your loved ones. I cannot express that enough. I will share a story. I do have a grandchild who is LGBTQ. And while I was walking around speaking with vendors at Pagan Pride Day last year, my grandkid comes up for a quick hug, and I introduced them using their correct pronouns. And after they bounced off to whatever they were doing, my vendor gave me a great big hug, someone I'd never met before, and said, I'm a trauma nurse. You don't know how many youth I see who have self-harmed or who have attempted suicide or who have succeeded suicide. I'm just so happy to know they're safe with you.
Yep. And it won't get picked up overnight. It's hard for people. Mistakes happen. And it's how you rebound and how you show that you're attempting and that you're trying, at least in my eyes.
Above all, it's accepting. I have a good friend who I have known for 15 years, who is now transitioning. And as I tell them now, because right now their pronouns are they and them, if I'm misgender, you knocked me upside the head, but 15 years ago, you got filed under cis male when I met you, okay? It just takes the mental database a bit to totally update. It's not that I don't support you. It's that it's going to take me a minute to totally update, and I will absent-mindedly refer to you
Mm-hmm. Hi,
as I
Rhonda.
did when we met. Hey, Rhonda, thank you so much for joining us. We're discussing LGBTQ rights today.
And I think the hardest thing for people to understand, at least when it comes to trans people, is that you don't come to this conclusion overnight. Um, and most of the time, when you ask somebody, did you know? Eventually, when they put all the little Lego blocks together in their head, it actually will make more sense. I've had tons of people who at first were very shocked and very surprised. And then when they really thought about it, they were like, oh, yeah, you kind of do make a better dude than you ever did as a chick. And it really just takes them thinking about it. You know,
And I will say that my friend is more at ease with themselves.
oh, I'm definitely more at ease with myself. But it also says something when a former state senator in New York is just like, yeah, this makes more sense. And even people who don't agree with my choices, in New York City is a very large and small place all at the same time. People who I would consider some of the more conservative and closed-minded beings really have had to really think hard about it when they meet me. Um,
Mhm.
and a story to go around that for those who don't know is I am the son of a 9/11 first responder, and every 9/11, when they say my dad's name, they're also kind of affirming mine in the same breath. So when they go through the list of people who got sick and passed away on Staten Island, all the elected officials see my dad's picture and name pop up. They go, Brian? Huh? Brian? And all of them will whisper to each other, no, that's Brian's dad. And
And
it'll
that's got to
sort of,
be a hard thing to deal with every year.
it's actually, that's why I named myself the way I did. For a long time, 9/11 first responders, to go on a very brief story, did not get honored and respected the way they should. And sort of I took it upon myself as an ode to my dad that literally every time you say my name, you're speaking his sacrifice into existence. So it's
And
sort of
that is beautiful.
it's kind of sort of its own magical moment in and of itself. But it also forces people to really think about also me in that instance, because you get all dressed up and you go, you put on the tie and you put on your blazer and you have to act a certain way in those spaces. And I I just, fall right in line with all the other guys and they can't really say anything.
No, no. And they really ought to come up and shake your hand and say, your father was something else.
And they have, many of them have. Um
Yeah.
there like I said, there are many, and believe it or not, people think that, I'm from Staten Island. I didn't always live in Manhattan. So I come from a a red borough. And those are the people that, like, that's what matters. It's how you present yourself and how, like, you assimilate in. And one day a year I have to do that, and I do. And then they can't do anything.
Mm-hmm.
You know? My mom got really lucky in the sense of she got a gay son, but my level of gay is not that gay to most people. So,
All
if anyone
right.
has any questions, I do love a good question. So,
Yeah. Does anybody have a question, comment?
nice comment.
Any ideas about what people need to be doing about legislation in their states?
I would say advocacy, believe it or not, is the most important thing. Um, every state probably has a good core group of LGBT activists. You could probably Google your state, and you'll probably find an Equality New York, like an Equality affiliate, or even an ACT UP affiliate. ACT UP does a lot of work around HIV and AIDS. Um, and I would say finding those elected officials who are your ally as well. Because just as much as the opposition can draft legislation, even if you're not in the majority, you can have some stuff drafted even just to show that like we're trying.
Right.
Making your voice heard is the most powerful thing.
It is. And as events in Tennessee have shown recently, I don't think the supermajority in our legislature actually speaks for most Tennesseans.
I watched that, believe it or not, and that was a interesting day. It sounded like for the Commonwealth of Tennessee.
Oh, yeah.
So, and I've been in those moments here in New York too. Not as intense, but definitely contentious. New York was one of the first states to start marriage equality that got it rippled across the United States. And the late Edie Windsor is a very close friend of mine when she was alive. I have some great stories with Edie.
Mm-hmm.
A tiny, tiny lady, as I am a tiny man, and I was always one of those people who she always wanted to grab me by the arm and have me walk her in somewhere.
Oh,
Yeah. And her second wife, Judith, is a friend of mine. So I would say, the wheels of justice turn slowly, but they do turn.
they do.
So I would say making your voice heard, going to Pride this year, um, even if you're an ally, going to Pride and showing your allyship. Allyship is a verb, so it is an action.
Yes.
And I would say, but also as allies, I would say to my allies that learn from those around you what people need from you.
Yes. Ask what I can do.
It might be helping your friend to go out and buy some affirming clothes. It might be telling your friend that she needs some more affirming clothes. I have a friend of mine who he's very tall. So I said I am 4'10". My friend is about 6'5", and he is my best man for my wedding next year, which will be an interesting time. And
Can't wait for the pictures.
Yes, I might need a box. But he's also very good at telling me like, the guy took down your beard too far. Next time, go one number higher. Like, not in a bad, not in a mean way, but just letting me know that like, yeah, he probably went a number too far.
Oh yeah, I quietly explained to someone who is starting her transition about the beauties of Nair.
That stuff smells horrible.
Nevertheless, if you wish to deal with your facial hair and not have to deal with stubble,
Touche.
Nair is a thing, and just quietly telling someone who had never ever did not grow up amongst women and girls having these conversations
Yep.
with women and girls and was not initiated into these things.
Yeah, I will say that also, um, talking to people on an individual level is more helpful than talking to groups. Um, because there is no one end all be all for people. Every person is different. Every other
Mhm.
person has other experiences or other aspirations for themselves. Um, but really, when it comes to allyship, take well, everyone should just listen to those around them, right? If the people who are doing this harm to our community would just listen, we wouldn't be in this position. But I would also say, as the LGBTQ community, we also sometimes need to listen and hear concerns and be able to articulate the difference, in my opinion, between a 3 a.m. drag show and a 3 p.m. drag show.
This is true.
Right? Not all drag queens want to play with baby children, which is okay. And not all drag queens are in a club at 3 a.m. There are in 2023 there is a wide range of drag. Um and also, just like there is a wide range of drag, there are trans people of every shape and size and gender identity and sexual orientation um, out there.
There are. And I mean, and it's just like you're if you are straight, your straight friends come in a wide variety.
Yep.
They do. Your straight family members come in a wide variety. So LGBTQ people are not one size fits all either.
And I will
And I have
say,
seen drag performances that are tailored to be family friendly. The best performance was the three sisters from uh, oh, the witch movie.
oh, Hocus Pocus.
Yes, the three sisters from Hocus Pocus. Uh, hello, good folks from Pagan World TV. I bet that's Ed. Hi, Ed. Was seeing three people in costume as the Sanderson sisters
Yep.
singing songs from that movie for kids. It was hysterical. The kids loved it, and it was totally appropriate.
I would say, and this is something that I saw on a TikTok a couple days ago, is if you're trying to think about if you're seeing an advertisement for a drag brunch and you're not sure about who the audience is at the brunch, call the restaurant or the venue and ask.
Yes,
You know, um, I think part of this is people learning boundaries and respect as individuals. Um,
hmm,
there's a lot of places, even as an adult, I don't want to go, or I don't think I should go. Um, and there are some places I've been where I don't know why there's a baby child behind me, but there is. And if you brought your baby child there, that's your decision. That's
exactly. And I mean, the other piece is it is up to parents to individually decide what is right for their children. And if your faith says you can't take your child to a drag show, that's fine. You don't get to make that decision for everybody else.
and I also think, and this is my opinion, that the decisions of people around their medical care are between them and their doctors and not
Yes,
legislators.
yes. And this applies to reproductive care. This applies to transitioning. this applies to any kind of health care. That is an individual conversation between the individual and their doctors about what is right for them in their individual situation.
I will say that last October I was interviewed by ABC News around the overturning of Roe v. Wade and trans men, because we were left out of the conversation because of that saying that trans men are men. And I will say that health these days is a everybody conversation. If you have certain parts, that conversation applies to you. And that goes for
Yeah.
breast cancer, prostate cancer, ovarian cancer. If there is an awareness day and you have that part, please listen to what's being brought up in awareness around those parts. So I was interviewed along with another trans guy, and my story was around the fact that I had walked into a Planned Parenthood and actually was denied access to an abortion because of how I identified. They said I was too masculine and there was no way in hell that I needed one in the city of New York. And then I actually, after reading a series of books and then on the internet, I used some herbalistic skills and took care of my business.
That is sad.
As my ancestors before me have done. And that's me.
And I am so sorry you were reduced to that. But yes, if you have the ability to get pregnant, then you need access to abortion care.
The conversations around the trans community, specifically around trans men, if you notice, are less. There's all these bills around if a trans woman is in the bathroom and what could happen. In the current state to which I exist in, I know several men who have literally said, well, if they told you to go into the bathroom with my daughter, you'd probably be dead. So believe it or not, our feelings around AFAB, which is assigned female at birth people, does not change because I transitioned. Once on the bottom of the food chain, always on the bottom of the food chain.
Unfortunately, I cannot argue with that.
No. So that was a very nice piece that ABC put together, and it took a very long time to come out, believe it or not.
Well, I'm glad you've got to share your perspective on that.
Yeah.
Yes, reproductive rights and abortion care is close to my heart. I've done one show on it on Witch Rising, and we'll be coming back to that topic, folks, soon. I just don't want to harp on that only.
No, but I figured I would just, plug it in there.
Yes.
But yeah, I would say that this conversation and that conversation and the people who both work in reproductive health as well as LGBTQ rights work very closely together as often as possible.
Yes.
And I'll just say again that part of this is we need to change what our representation in our state governments looks like. We need to change the people who get to speak for us. And the little old cis straight white guys need to go.
And I agree, we need representation who is willing to work for the good of all constituents. I'm going to phrase it that way.
That's fine.
So, if your representatives are not working for the good of all constituents, no matter what they look like, who they love, or who they worship, then you need new representatives.
Yes.
All right. Well, I want to thank everyone for joining us tonight. Brian, thank you so much for being my guest. I've really enjoyed having you. And I'm sure you'll be joining me again in the future. There are all kinds of things we can talk about.
Of course.
All right. So, everyone, I am Reverend Mary Hawk. This is Brian John Ellicott, and thank you for joining us on Witch Rising.
Witch Rising. With Reverend Mary Hawk. Purple Goddess by Reverend Don Lewis. Angry Uterus by Carrie Wagner. Announcer, Don Hawk. Music written and performed by Don Hawk. In loving memory of Mary Frankie Clark.